They told you power was loud, that dominance had a voice, a temper, a visible fire in the eyes, something explosive and impossible to ignore, but they were wrong. Real power doesn't shout, doesn't explain itself, doesn't rush to be understood or validated by the room. Real power watches. It studies the emotional weather of the moment and chooses not to be carried away by it. There is a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when a man gives away his position in the world, and it doesn't happen through his words or even his physical strength, but through his emotions. A tightened jaw, a defensive tone, a need to prove, a rush to correct how he's perceived. And just like that, the psychological balance shifts, because the one who reacts follows, and the one who remains still leads. Your face is a canvas, whether you realize it or not. Every flicker of frustration, every flash of insecurity, and every surge of anger paint a picture others instinctively study. Most men walk through life with their inner world on display, readable, predictable, controllable. But the rare man learns to close the gallery. He feels everything but reveals nothing he hasn't consciously chosen to reveal. There's an aura around someone like this, not built on intimidation, but on emotional precision. His presence doesn't beg for attention, it pulls it. Conversations slow when he speaks. Tension drops when he stays calm. People measure their words more carefully, not out of fear, but out of awareness, because they cannot read him, and what cannot be read cannot be easily moved. In a world addicted to emotional display, composure becomes a quiet rebellion. While others rush to express, defend, and react, he observes. While others leak their thoughts through restless energy, he stands like a shadow against the wall, silent, grounded, aware of everything. This is not suppression, this is authorship. The ability to choose what the world sees and what it never will. Like a masterpiece, this presence is carved by removing excess. Excess reaction, excess ego, excess emotional leakage. What remains is control, clarity, stillness, and stillness in the right man is never weakness. It is the posture of someone who cannot be easily shaken, provoked, or controlled, because the moment a man loses command of his emotions, he hands command of himself to someone else. And the strongest man in the room is often the calmest one. Number one, the face as the first battlefield of power. The camera stays close, almost uncomfortably so, as if the lens is searching for something beneath the skin. A face, still and unreadable, holds more authority than 1,000 dramatic gestures. Long before words are spoken, the human nervous system scans faces for signals of threat, safety, dominance, or submission. This happens in milliseconds, beneath conscious awareness. When your emotions spill across your features without restraint, you surrender control of that first impression. Your frustration tightens the jaw. Your anxiety flickers in the eyes. Your need for approval softens your posture. Each signal becomes data for others to interpret and, more importantly, to use. The man who understands this does not become expressionless. He becomes intentional. He realizes his face is not just a reflection of feeling, but an instrument of influence. In high-stakes environments, leadership, negotiation, conflict resolution, the individual who appears emotionally stable triggers a different psychological response in others. Research in social psychology shows that people instinctively trust and defer to those who appear composed under pressure. Calm signals competence. Stillness signals control. Emotional leakage signals vulnerability. This does not mean becoming robotic. It means learning to experience emotion internally while choosing how much of it deserves external expression. When irritation rises, he does not let it immediately shape his tone. When excitement surges, he does not let it rush his decisions. He understands that emotional expression is a tool, not a reflex. Over time, this creates an aura around him, subtle, not theatrical. People feel that he is centered, hard to provoke, difficult to read. That unreadability is not distance, it is depth. Like a lake whose surface barely ripples even when something heavy sinks below. This is the first layer of elite self-mastery, the realization that your face is the front line of psychological power. Control the surface, and you buy time to manage the depths. Number two, emotional reactivity and the loss of cognitive authority. When emotion surges without warning, the shift inside the brain is not poetic, it is biological. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, lights up as if danger is present, releasing stress hormones that prepare the body for fight, flight, or freeze. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic, foresight, and measured judgment, goes partially offline. Blood flow and neural resources are redirected towards survival, not strategy. In practical terms, emotional flooding narrows perception and shortens thinking. This is why a person can be intelligent in general, yet make impulsive, self-sabotaging decisions in moments of anger, fear, or excitement. Biology temporarily outranks wisdom. The composed man recognizes this pattern and treats emotional regulation as a form of cognitive defense. He understands that the real threat in high-pressure moments is not the situation itself, but the loss of access to his own higher reasoning. Instead of reacting outwardly, he intervenes internally. He slows his breathing to steady his heart rate. He relaxes his jaw, lowers his shoulders, and stills unnecessary movement. These signals travel back to the nervous system, quietly communicating safety. As the body settles, the mind regains clarity. This is not emotional suppression, it is emotional governance. He allows feelings to exist without allowing them to take command. That distinction is power. In environments where stakes are high, boardrooms, negotiations, personal confrontations, financial risk, most people become emotionally loud, even when they are silent. Their thinking grows rigid, their listening weakens, and their reactions become predictable. The man who stays neurologically calm maintains access to nuance. He notices tone shifts, micro-expressions, contradictions, and timing. While others are driven by emotional urgency, he operates from deliberate choice. This creates an invisible asymmetry. He is playing chess, while others are reacting to checkers. Over time, this consistent emotional steadiness shapes how others perceive him. He becomes known as the one who does not panic, who does not escalate, and who does not crumble when pressure rises. In conflict, he is measured. In a crisis, he is steady. In uncertainty, he is clear. His presence carries psychological weight, not because he dominates the room, but because he stabilizes it. People begin to regulate themselves around his calm. He becomes a quiet reference point, a grounding force. Influence gathers around those who remain functional when others fragment. Emotional self-mastery, then, is not about looking strong, it is about staying mentally available when it matters most. Number 3, historical composure and the discipline of inner dialogue. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during war, plague, and political instability. Yet his personal writings reveal a man focused not on controlling others, but on governing himself. His private reflections were not dramatic speeches, but quiet mental corrections, reminders to examine impressions before accepting them as truth. He understood that the first story the mind tells is rarely the most accurate one. What we feel instantly is often shaped by fear, ego, or habit, rather than reality. In essence, he taught that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments we attach to them. This idea mirrors what modern cognitive behavioral psychology confirms centuries later. Thoughts create emotional reactions. The disciplined individual then does not surrender to his first interpretation. He questions it. Instead of thinking, "This is disrespect," he asks, "Is there another explanation I haven't considered?" Instead of declaring, "This is a disaster," he reframes it to, "This is a challenge that requires adjustment." That subtle shift in internal language interrupts emotional escalation. It creates a crucial space between stimulus and response, a gap where reason can step in before impulse takes control. Marcus trained himself to pause before labeling situations as good or bad, personal or impersonal, threatening or neutral. That pause was power. It preserved his composure in circumstances that would have overwhelmed most people. Armies clashed, disease spread, and betrayal lingered in political shadows. Yet his greatest battlefield remained his own mind. Today, this same discipline builds emotional resilience in a world filled with constant stimulation and instant reactions. When you train your mind to interpret events through perspective instead of impulse, your emotional baseline begins to stabilize. You no longer swing violently between emotional extremes. You observe more and react less. You listen to your thoughts instead of being commanded by them. Over time, this steadiness becomes visible. People sense that you are not easily shaken. Your reactions are measured, not explosive. Your presence feels grounded rather than chaotic. That consistency builds trust without you needing to demand it. Others begin to feel that you are dependable in uncertain moments, calm under pressure, and clear when others are clouded. You move through tense environments without absorbing their turbulence. Like a ghost moving quietly through chaos, you are never frantic, never loud in your emotions, yet always fully aware. This is not emotional suppression. It is emotional mastery born from disciplined inner dialogue. Number 4, cinematic stillness. As a study in psychological containment, film often dramatizes power through intensity, but the most compelling figures are frequently the quietest. Remove the extreme storylines, and what remains visually striking is their composure. Watch the pacing of their movements, the restraint in their speech, and the way they hold eye contact without rushing to fill silence. These traits create tension not through aggression, but through emotional containment. The lesson here is not imitation of character, but observation of behavior. When a person does not immediately react, others project meaning onto that stillness. Silence invites reflection. Measured speech signals thoughtfulness. Unhurried movement suggests confidence. In psychology, unpredictability in emotional expression increases perceived authority because others cannot easily map your internal state. But this must be rooted in authenticity. Emotional containment is not about playing a role. It is about truly reducing unnecessary reactivity so your external presence reflects internal control. When you speak less impulsively, your words carry more weight. When you do not rush to defend yourself emotionally, you appear secure. When you remain composed under scrutiny, you communicate self-trust. Over time, this forms an aura of quiet authority, not dominance, not intimidation, stability. And stability in uncertain environments becomes magnetic. This kind of presence is often misunderstood because modern culture equates loudness with confidence and speed with competence. Yet the nervous system tells a different story. Calm, regulated behavior signals safety and control, which naturally draws attention without force. People feel it before they understand it. A steady gaze, relaxed posture, and deliberate responses subtly communicate that you're not governed by the emotional weather of the room. This creates psychological space. Others slow down. Conversations become more intentional. Reactions soften. You are no longer pulled into every emotional current. Instead, you become the shoreline that defines the boundary. Cinematic figures appear powerful not because they dominate every moment, but because they choose when to engage. That selectiveness signals value. Scarcity of reaction makes each response meaningful. Stillness also sharpens perception. When you are not busy preparing your next emotional defense, you can observe tone shifts, body language, and unspoken dynamics. This awareness further reinforces composed behavior, creating a feedback loop between internal regulation and external impact. The result is not a performance, but a grounded state of being. Over time, others associate you with steadiness, and in unstable situations, steadiness becomes leadership. This is the deeper lesson behind cinematic stillness. Power is not always expressed through action. Often it is revealed through the disciplined choice not to react. Number 5, modern emotional intelligence and response flexibility. Contemporary psychology defines emotional intelligence not as being highly expressive, but as being aware of emotions while regulating how they influence behavior. One key component is response flexibility, the ability to pause, evaluate, and choose a response aligned with long-term values rather than short-term impulses. This pause, though invisible, is where personal power lives. Studies consistently show that individuals with strong emotional regulation experience better leadership outcomes, healthier relationships, and greater life satisfaction. The reason is simple but profound. They do not allow temporary emotional weather to dictate permanent decisions. They understand that feelings are signals, not instructions. Emotions move like waves, rising, cresting, and falling. Anger signals a boundary that may need attention. Fear signals uncertainty that may require preparation. Excitement signals opportunity that deserves consideration. But none of these states automatically determine action. The emotionally disciplined man has trained himself to observe before reacting. He listens to emotion without surrendering authority to it. This is the foundation of internal sovereignty. He is not controlled by the emotional climate of the room. When others panic, he does not absorb their panic as if it were contagious. When others escalate, he does not mirror their intensity in a reflexive loop. Instead, he maintains his internal baseline, a steady psychological center that remains intact, regardless of external turbulence. This steadiness becomes his masterpiece, not loud, not dramatic, but refined through daily repetition. Each time he chooses calm over impulsive reaction, he strengthens neural pathways associated with regulation and thoughtful decision-making. Neuroscience confirms that repeated emotional control literally rewires the brain, making composure more automatic over time. What begins as conscious effort gradually becomes identity. Over months and years, emotional control stops feeling like suppression and starts feeling like alignment. People begin to describe him differently, not as cold or distant, but as grounded, not as detached, but as balanced. That distinction is crucial. Detachment disconnects. Balance connects without losing stability. This is the heart of sophisticated influence. Others feel safer around someone who does not swing wildly with every emotional shift. His presence lowers emotional noise in the environment. Conversations become clearer. Decisions become wiser. Conflicts de-escalate faster. This is not passivity, it is precision. He responds rather than reacts, chooses rather than obeys impulse, and leads himself before attempting to lead others. In a world driven by emotional immediacy, his restraint becomes rare, and rarity creates value. Number 6, presence as the final expression of self-mastery. In the end, emotional control is not about winning arguments or appearing superior. It is about protecting your ability to act with intention, especially in moments when others are ruled by impulse. When your emotional state is stable, your presence changes in ways that are subtle yet powerful. You move more slowly, speak more deliberately, and listen more fully, not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you are no longer rushing to defend your ego. Others feel less judged and more understood around you because you're not reacting to them. You are observing them with grounded awareness. This creates psychological safety, which paradoxically increases your influence without you ever chasing it. People begin to open up naturally. They seek your perspective during tense moments. They trust your judgment because your responses are not emotionally contaminated. Your calm becomes a resource others rely on when situations feel uncertain or emotionally charged. This is the highest form of quiet power. You do not dominate the room, you stabilize it. You do not overpower others, you ground them. Your shadow stretches not because you demand attention, but because your composure sharply contrasts the emotional noise around you. Over time, this steady presence begins shaping your life trajectory in tangible ways. Opportunities flow toward those perceived as steady and reliable. Leadership gravitates toward those who remain clear under pressure. Relationships deepen with those who respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. And internally, you begin to experience a different quality of life. Less emotional turbulence, more mental clarity, and far fewer regrets born from momentary reactions. The moment you learn to hold your emotions without letting them hold you, everything shifts at a foundational level. Your silence gains meaning because it is chosen, not forced. Your words gain weight because they are measured, not impulsive. Your presence gains gravity because it is rooted in self-command. And without raising your voice, without forcing control, without performing strength, you step into a level of influence that feels effortless, refined, and enduring.